Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel Pigskin Addicts. Back again with another video. So I'm getting back to my season review for coaches, players, right? Guys who had impacts, good or bad. So obviously you guys see the thumbnail of this. This is Justin Herbert's season review. So I'm giving him a letter grade, and again, this is just my opinion. This can be argued as much as you want to, right? In support of, in opposition, right? As much as you want. So these are just my opinions, just my thoughts. I'm going to give some supporting documentation to back my thoughts up. But again, these are just my thoughts and opinions, so don't take too much away from it. Now, for the 2022 season, I give Justin Herbert a B, and I think that is a fair grade. There are going to be some people who don't agree with me there. I think for the most part, a lot of people would agree, but I think there's going to be some people there who don't agree. There is a segment of fans who are so upset at everything that the Chargers do, right? The blown 27-point lead in the playoffs, pretty much the bad parts of what the Chargers do. I've seen there's a lot of people who blame Justin Herbert for a lot of things, right? And he's not the perfect player. There's no such thing as a perfect player, but he is a damn good quarterback, right? He's one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league, right? I think you would say, I think there is a consensus around the league that he is a top 5 quarterback. So when you look at everything that he has done, right? Everything that he had to navigate through the 2022 season, I think a B is a very, very fair grade to give him. Season stats, 68.2 completion percentage, right? That's pretty much on par with what he does. He is a very high completion guy, very accurate. We already know this. 4,739 yards, right? That's obviously a pretty damn good season, just a game shy of 5,000 yards, which he eclipsed in 2021. 25 touchdowns and 10 interceptions and a 93.2 passer rating, right? The passer rating is a little lower than what he has put out in his previous years, but you have to take into account, right? Obviously, the big pink elephant in the room, the rib injury week 2. That stifled whatever progress that Justin Herbert was going to have during the season, right? It stifled whatever numbers that he was going to put up because he didn't miss a game with it. I think that is impressive, right? When you look at what he was able to do in 2022, I think that was probably the most impressive thing. Be able to go out and gut out probably one of the most painful injuries any player can have, right? And, when you're talking about quarterback, right, you're in a position where you're talking all game long, right? You're obviously calling plays. You're making calls at the line of scrimmage. I've never had a rib injury, but from what everybody tells me and from what some of you guys have told me, it is one of the most painful injuries you can have, right? Even talking, laughing, doing all those things, it causes pain, right? Because you use your diaphragm to talk. And, if your rib is jacked up, right, part of your diaphragm is jacked up. So that's what he had to deal with all season long. It's impressive as hell. So I think you have to give him a lot of credit for that. And, you just really, really have to look at it and marvel at how tough this guy is, right? There's a lot of players who would not be able to get out of bed, right, let alone play 10 days after suffering that type of rib injury. So he deserves a lot of credit for that. Now, one of the unknown injuries of pretty much the entire NFL season, right, that nobody really suspected happened was that torn labrum, right? His left labrum got torn, and I've heard conflicting, things of when it happened, but there was no actual date given, no actual game given, no particular week given when this happened, right? Now, we can speculate on when we thought it might have happened, and I speculated in a video that I did not too long ago when it happened, and I thought it was right before the Denver game in Week 18. I thought maybe Week 17, Week 16-ish or something like that. But it could have been earlier, right? We don't know. They could have just bothered him at that point because he had the K-tape on his left shoulder. But we don't know for sure when it happened. But we do know that he played and he gutted that out as well, too. We heard that, he could play through the injury. It wasn't going to get any worse. But all of that talk is good, right? It's good on paper, but you're not dealing with it, right? That is something that can cause you a lot of pain, especially when you're taking direct hits on that shoulder. You're getting hit from, really, really big defensive linemen, right? Really big linebackers and things like that. And sometimes they're driving their helmet right into that injury, right? So we can say that, it doesn't, he's not going to, get any worse and all of that stuff. But he's the one that has to deal with it. He's the one that has to bear the brunt of all that physicality, all those hits, that's what he has to deal with. We sit here and talk about it. He deals with it. So again, that's something that you have to give him credit for. He's tough. He's a very, very tough guy. He's tough as nails. He doesn't complain. And, again, with the torn labrum, we didn't even know that it happened. We didn't know that it happened until after the season when we seen the picture of him, after he had surgery on it. So, that is one that I definitely look back at and say, wow, how was he able to do everything that he was able to do, dealing with two pretty big injuries, right? Two pretty major injuries. Those are injuries that, cause guys to miss time all the time. And for him to be the franchise quarterback of the Chargers, right, for him to be one of the faces of the NFL, for him to play through that, again, it's impressive and very, very high marks in my book. Now, one of the big issues that Justin Herbert had to deal with all year long was the pass catcher thing, right? There was injuries at pretty much every point in the season, right? Except for the final 3 to 4 games. Big injuries all over, right? You lose your speed receiver and Jalen Guyton, right? You obviously lose Keenan Allen. You lose Mike Williams. All those guys missed, a good amount of time, right? A significant portion of time. I've also hit on this in several videos before too. Tom Telesco, GM, he sat on his hands. He did not go out and get any extra help in the wide receiver room. And Justin Herbert was forced to play several games, throwing to Michael Bandy, Jason Moore, right, and DeAndre Carter. These guys are either journeymen, right, practice squad players, or just bubble guys, right, bubble roster guys who might not make rosters on other teams. So when you're looking at that, right, when you're looking at who he is forced to throw the ball to, for the Chargers to have 10 wins, for them to get through the season, right, with the winning record and make the playoffs, it is very, very, very impressive. And this is one of those things that stats really can't define, right? You can look at Herbert's stats, and yes, they're fine. Obviously, they're down from 2021. But when you look at what he was able to do from the leadership standpoint, to me, that's the most impressive thing, right? There's a lot of guys who would have complained. There's a lot of guys who would have, bitched and moaned their way through the season, right? We see what Aaron Rodgers does every single season, right? Even Derek Carr this year with the Raiders, right? You see how things blew up there. There's a lot of guys who would have complained, who would have made excuses. Herbert didn't do any of that, right? He didn't do any of that. He comes out to the podium every week, right? He's robotic in what he says. He's very good with the media, right, as far as his answers and stuff like that. He never gives any bulletin board material. As far as, being a reporter or somebody covering the game, right? He's not going to give you any newsworthy headlines from his press conferences. But if you're a player, if you're a coach in that locker room, you understand and you appreciate the way that he approaches that, right? He takes care of his business in the locker room, right? He is one guy with the team, right? And he's another guy with the media. And I think that's how it should be. So he gets a lot of credit for that in my book, being able to navigate these bad circumstances that the Chargers placed him with. And again, he didn't complain. He didn't talk down on anybody. He maintained his cool. He maintained his composure throughout the season. And again, that's very, very high marks in my book. Now, there's a lot of issues, right? A lot of issues offensively with the Chargers. Obviously, Joe Lombardi was the biggest one, the offensive coordinator. He is gone now in Denver. But Joe Lombardi didn't do Justin Herbert any favors last season. We get that. We understand that. The run game didn't do him any favors last year as well either. We get it. We understand it. The offensive line, there were some issues there. There was, some continuity issues, a couple of injuries, right? Nothing really major outside of Rashawn Slater, but there was some issues, right? There was some shuffling going on towards the middle of the season, and, there was a point where Justin Herbert was getting hit, right? He was getting hit a bunch and still recovering from the rib injury. Again, the torn labrum on his left shoulder, we don't know when it happened, but, you could probably make an educated guess and say it was probably around that time when he was getting hit. In the middle of the season, right? It wouldn't be, out of line to say that, but there was a lot to deal with. The Chargers gave him a lot to deal with. He had a lot of BS to navigate through, and he got through it. He got this team through it, and I think if you're a player on this team, right, you couldn't be any more confident in Justin Herbert. He's shown what he can do. Several coaching staffs, right? Learning new playbooks, year in and year out. This is going to be his third, new playbook to learn in 4 years in the league, right? So this is something that is very, very difficult to do. He's shown that he can handle it all, though. He is a consummate professional, and you have to give him credit for navigating the Chargers through this very, very tough, difficult season. Injuries were obviously a big issue, but coaching on both sides of the ball was a big issue as well too. Something you have to acknowledge. But this guy was a constant, right? He was very, very composed, right? He was very, very, very cool as far as his leadership goes, right? Just that calming presence, him just clapping on the sidelines, right? Even though he threw an interception or the offense wasn't playing well, they weren't moving the ball, he's still kind of upbeat on the sideline, right? He's still clapping his hands, still encouraging guys, right? And that means something to those players. So you have to give him a lot of credit for that. Now, there's a lot of good things you can say about Justin Herbert. Obviously, I think the one thing, though, the biggest criticism that I have for him is his trust that he has, or lack thereof, right, in his receivers, tight ends, all of that, right? I think he needs to develop more trust in his guys. And that's easier said than done, right? If you go out and you throw a guy, 3 perfect passes and he drops all of them, it's understandable why you wouldn't want to go back to him for that 4th time, right? It's completely understandable. I get it. I do. I really get it. But I think if you are going to have team success, right, and especially if the offense is going to be, playing at a level, to compete with the Kansas City, right, to compete with some of the better teams in the AFC, you're going to have to trust your guys, right? Defenses are going to take away, right, a Keenan Allen. They're going to take away a Mike Williams. They're going to make it hard on you, right? They're going to make it difficult, especially down the stretch of the season in the playoffs. You have to trust your guys, and I think that's something that Justin Herbert didn't do all that well last year. And, again, rib injury, shoulder injury, all of that stuff aside, I don't think that he trusted his receivers all that much, right? And again, there's good reason not to. A lot of guys let him down this year, but there were several times, right, when I was watching film, when I was breaking down film on here, where there were guys running open, right? Guys who had previously dropped passes at different points in the season, right? Guys who were running wide open. Herbert would look at them and then go somewhere else, right? Either throw the ball out of bounds, maybe give Mike Williams a contested ball or something. But there was guys running wide open who he completely just, looked off because they had let him down at previous points, right? And I get it. I understand that. But I think, if he wants to take that next step, he's going to have to trust his guys. And again, I get it. I get it. I 100% get it. But I think that does more for those guys than anything else, right? It does way more for those guys, for them to know that they have the trust of their quarterback, right? And their quarterback is one of the best in the league. For them to know that, yes, they made a mistake. Yes, they dropped a pass. But for him to go back to them, right, to show them, hey, I know you made a mistake. Here's the ball again, right? I trust you to make this catch, right? I trust you the next time I'm going to you. I think that can do a whole lot for confidence. And, the guys I'm talking about, right, the Trey McKitties of the world, right, the Gerald Everetts of the world, sometimes these guys were open, right, and Herbert decided to go somewhere else because they have dropped passes at crucial points. And I get it. I understand why he would go somewhere else. But I think if he really, really, really wants to hit that next level, right, being able to instill trust in those guys, I think it goes a long way. I really do. I think it goes a long way. And it's also on them to get better, right? It's also on them to make sure that they are, playing at a level that is up to par with the rest of the offense, right? They obviously have to catch open passes. They got to be able to get open, run, crisp routes. They got to do all of that stuff. But I think it's really, 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 really going to behoove Herbert to try to instill more confidence in those guys, right? Whether it's staying after practice and getting some work in with those guys, or just throwing the ball to them, right? Showing them that, yes, they made a mistake, but showing them, yes, I still trust you. You're still one of my teammates. You're still one of my guys. I think that can do a lot of good. And I'm looking for him to do that in 2023, right? I think he's going to be healthy. I think he's going to be ready to go. This is a new offense, right? There's going to be more innovation, right? There's going to be more things that are going to throw defenses off. So guys are going to be open. And I think if he really, really, really wants to, ascend to that next level, he's going to have to trust some of those guys. The no names on the team, right? He's going to have to trust those guys to make plays for him, when other guys are covered. So that is my one biggest criticism of Justin Herbert at this point right now. But that was my video here for Justin Herbert, his 2022 season review. I just mentioned it. New offensive coordinator in town, Kellen Moore. This is going to be a new offense. I'm excited to see what they do. I think Herbert is going to have a really good bounce back season And I expect him to squarely be in the MVP debate. Honestly, I think he can have that type of season. So I expect him to be somewhere around that MVP debate at the end of the year. I think his numbers are going to be there. And I think the Chargers offense is going to look a lot more exciting. It's going to be a better watch. And they're going to put up a lot of points. They're going to be hard to stop. So definitely looking forward to that. But that was my video on the Herbert season of 2022. Thank you guys so much for all the support. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. And don't forget to smash that like button on your way out as well, too. Shout out to all my new subscribers. I appreciate you guys. I'll be back again tomorrow with more content. And until next time.